Dear friends, kitabu में इतना खजाना छुपा है जितना कोई लुटेरा कभी लूट नहीं सकता. It's raining. We're all trying to keep warm, but I'm certainly delighted to be here with you today, partaking in the magic of the Jaipur Literary Festival and reflecting on the power of books to transform and transport us. For many of you, UNESCO is probably identified chiefly with the promotion of cultural heritage, and of course, this is among the most visible aspects of our work. But I want to start by emphasizing that, in fact, education is our primary focus area. As an international organization, we recognize the profound importance of quality education for children under 15, as the learning acquired by children during their formative years impacts their transition to youth and adulthood. Developing educational content that both instructs and delights is therefore, in our view, absolutely vital. Educating children about their history and culture is an especially effective way of helping them negotiate the world around them. It helps also instill a spirit of inquiry and the ability to appreciate beauty, diversity, and inclusiveness. History must come alive so that for children, so that people and places become, I would say, like old friends waiting to be met. That is one reason why the Roshni children's books on the UNESCO World Heritage Sites of India that we're launching in Hindi today are so special for us. Published by Mappin, this series is the first attempt anywhere in the world to produce a comprehensive set of illustrated children's books about each of UNESCO's cultural and natural heritage sites in a particular country. We are very much indebted to Bipin Shah, the publisher of Mappin, for his vision and I would say also his passion, and for helping us do something that has never been done before. Its concept, apart from the sheer scale of the initiative, makes it unique, with 37 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in India, which include, by the way, natural but also cultural and so-called mixed sites. India has among the highest number of World Heritage Sites globally. We're certain that this number is, of course, going to continue to grow steadily, and with the help of our supporters, we intend to go forward and publish a book each about the remaining 32 sites. Further, Hindi will not be the only language of publication. UNESCO is an ardent promoter of multilingualism and the use of mother languages. Actually, I should mention that we are currently leading the United Nations global observance of 2019 as the International Year of Indigenous Languages. So, as such, I'm very pleased to tell you that the Tamil translations of the Roshni children's books are already completed and published, and that Marathi, Gujarati, and Malayalam editions of the book are going to be published as well. We hope that the series will therefore mirror a little bit of India's linguistic diversity. Finally, the potential reach of the book and its expected value for children really excites us. With roughly 400 million children around under 15, India has just about the largest child population in the world, and at a time when other countries with large populations are beginning to age rapidly, India is growing younger in an unprecedented fashion, leading, of course, to much speculation about the creation of a new young India by 2022. It's very important, we feel, that a new generation of Indians grow to maturity with a sound understanding of their history and environment in a language that is readily understood. Of course, the new media allow children to access content in countless ways, but carefully conceived, well-written, and beautifully illustrated books like the Roshni series will still have a primacy and authenticity that is difficult to replicate. So we would like to believe that this series will in time become essential companions to children across India and impart to them some of their uniqueness and magic. Thank you very much.
Could we have the book on stage? the editor of the series, Narayana Gupta, to the podium.
Hello. My main purpose in speaking is to introduce two of our wonderful collaborators in this work, Suhail and Sopan, who will be speaking to you, having a conversation about the books after I finish. But I just wanted to say a few words about how exciting this whole project has been and why. One of my own favorite books is The Young Visitors. Yeah? Okay, thank you. The Young Visitors by Daisy Ashford. As it has been for many people, I don't know how many of you recognize the book. Alan Friedman in the New York Times, as long ago as 1973, had written, misspelt and spellbinding, The Young Visitors. The Young Visitors is a tiny novel that begs comparison with giants. Tolstoy's War and Peace, Flaubert's Sentimental Education, and Lawrence's Women in Love may be bigger, but The Young Visitors, too, manages to contain and display more gracefully than the giants an entire civilization. Miss Ashford had written the novel, when she was all of 9 years old. So 9-year-old children, as I know from experience of talking to young kids, are quite happy to think of the novel they're going to write, and many of them start it immediately. If you think about it, most books for children are written by adults imitating children. This book was written by a child mimicking adults. Many children are potential Daisy Ashfords. I remember in my first school, which was a truly wonderful place, we were all encouraged to write books at the age of 7. We then bound them using pots of thick glue and designed the dust jackets. And somewhere, unknown to us, a bond was created between the child and the subject. As an adult, I'm sneakily sympathize with some children when I saw them dancing along on the last day of their board exams, joyously tearing up their flimsy textbooks and flinging them into the air. It reminded me of Molesworth in Down with School when he says, no more history, no more French, no more sitting on the hard old bench. On the whole, young children are sporting, they're uncomplaining. As they trudge along like camels bent under the weight of their books, they look forward to senior classes when the weight will decrease and perhaps they will get that coveted smartphone. Few of them dream today of a bookshelf of their own lined with exciting books. The school books were enough. So the purpose of these books is that we might bring back into fashion the bookshelf and children's books which they will treasure and want to keep. Why are so many textbooks so mind-numbingly boring? Because of the top-downwards approach? Trying to find the right words often ends in dumbing down the narrative. Descriptions of landscapes or of monuments are fluffed out with superlatives without quite explaining what is so special about them. Children pick up this habit of reducing everything to a single word. We now have internalized the American shortcuts of amazing and awesome. And if you ask children what they felt about a particular place they went to, this is the word I often get in response. Many children have their books bought for them by their parents. And the parents judge a book by the amount of information it contains. Imagination, humor, reflection, counterfactual history is not seen as a necessity. Children, of course, think otherwise. A colleague was telling his daughter about the Shah Jahan building the Taj Mahal, and she looked him firmly in the eye and said, "Unhone kahan banaya? Taj Mahal to mazdoron ne banaya." She has grown up, I'm glad to say, to be a successful architect. Children who have been forced to accept and not to question grow up into adults with stunted minds, no imagination, no reflectiveness, no empathy. Unlike Browning's Pippa, who said, "Day, if I were to waste a wavelet of thee," and used every minute to its fullest, many children today are bored with the world, the times they live in. By the time they're 13, they're constantly urged to do the politically correct thing. One of these is to care for our heritage. Care for, simply to like or to actually look after it. This one-liner does not explain anything. It's translated into dull injunctions to keep monuments clean, to avoid scribbling your name on it. But there is an all-important prerequisite, which is not stated, to have a sense of affection and curiosity for the object. This is why we chose to publish books specifically for children of a particular age group, 8 to 13, not younger, not older. The years when the anticipation is glowing in them, when they still look to the future as an exciting place, when they want to think for themselves, and they haven't given up and become passive. And most important, to let them, in a sense, write the books themselves, like Daisy Ashford did. So what we do is the children visit the heritage site with the author, spend as much time as they want to, and the author is the amanuensis, and the artist captures the things that the children notice. And without their noticing, they have developed a sense of affection for the monument or for the natural site and want to return someday. Each of the 5 books we have published so far is the result of a visit to the site with children and constant interaction between writers and artists. This pattern will be followed for subsequent volumes. Meanwhile, let me proudly introduce Sohail Hashmi, a charismatic heritage walk leader from Delhi, who's constantly in demand, and Sopan Joshi, who writes for children as well as for adults, a writer and philosopher who can unerringly point out where we have gone wrong in writing with children and how easy it is to write well if we become the children that we once were. Thank you.
And now we'll have a brief discussion between Sopan Joshi and Sohail Hashmi.
Good evening. The one lasting memory I have of children's literature that I encountered in my childhood is suspicion. I used to think that the grown-ups always gave the riffraff for us kids, and they kept the nice stuff to themselves. Because the kind of children's literature we got was, it moralized, it condescended, and it seldom engaged. Things are very different today. Kids have much better books, but still there is a fair bit of distance to go, because they still look like books that grown-ups have made for kids. Now, Sohail has been doing these walks. As Narayani just told you, these books are based on walks that children have done along with the writer and the artist through these historical monuments. Now, Sohail has been doing these walks for several years now. And I wonder if you've noticed any difference between how kids look at historical monuments and how grown-ups look at them.
Well, taking off from where you started, the kind of books that we were given were almost all when we were kids. And that is how quite a lot of books are even being written even today. Children are being told to be good. Every book that a child picks up has to have a lesson. And there was so much sermonizing in these books that one grew tired of these books. And over the last 10-15 years, the walks that I have been conducting in Delhi, which essentially began with school kids, because I realized that school children are growing up without knowing anything about the city in which they live. So I started these Discover Delhi walks. Then the news spread and adults also started coming. And it is then that I realized that the way children look at buildings and structures is totally different from the way adults look at these buildings. Adults are constantly trying to get reaffirmation for what they already know. The children, they are not burdened with history that has been received. And so therefore their questions are far more interesting, investigative, and they open up a new world. And this writing of these books, I was involved in writing the book on Sanchi, has really been an eye-opener. Because it is for the first time, and Sanchi is a favorite. I must have been there scores of times in different weathers, different times of the day. This is when I took 10 students from 2 underprivileged schools in Bhopal. Only 2 of them had been to Sanchi, which is just 40 kilometers from there. Took them there, and they were all in the age group between 8 and 9 to 10, 12. There is a difference of height. The things that are at their eye level is what interests them. And you had to suddenly realize that the way you look at these buildings and the way a child looks at a building is totally different. Their point of view is different. And then the questions they asked, and which is part of the narration of the book. As I already told you, I've been there scores of times. There are times, but there is this child who asked me, "What are these holes for?" And those holes I was seeing for the first time. And all of those holes run at the base of Sanchi. They've been drilled by the Archaeological Survey of India so that trapped water can escape. If I had not taken these children there, I wouldn't have known. Another child was, for the first time, something that I have noticed. But this little girl, she says, "Why are there so many buffaloes?" Sanchi has no cows. There are just not a single cow carved in Sanchi. And there are thousands of buffaloes. And this child on her first visit noticed this. I have not heard this question from any adult ever. So the way children look at these things and the kind of questions they ask, the idea behind the series of these books is to look at the monument, at heritage from the point of view of the child, and to get as excited about the structure as the child does. That is what we have tried to capture.
So I haven't actually written any one of these books, but I am part of the advisory team. And Eric mentioned just now that we have a lot of monuments and we have a lot of children. Now there is a greater message there, because we tend to be people who are quite unaware of our own heritage. I live in Delhi and I have architect friends. They have these rich clients who come to them, and they've invariably gone for a holiday to Europe, and they've come back with pictures of houses in Europe, and they come back and say, "Make us a house like this." And the architect tries to tell them that this is not practical. This is a different place. The weather is different. But they say no, so put in an extra air conditioner. And part of this is that we are not made aware of our land, its heritage, its characteristics from a young age. Now, efforts like this, they actually introduce us to these buildings, because these buildings are actually not just stone and masonry. They are stories. I really believe in Stephen Jay Gould when he said, humans are primates who tell stories. We are all stories, and everything, pretty much everything about us is a story. And these monuments are really interesting old stories with treachery, with loyalty, with stories that tell us a lot about ourselves and also don't tell us a lot at times. And we seem to be unaware of this. I'm looking forward to the book on Lal Killa that comes out, because I've not met any children in Delhi who have the faintest idea of what that fantastic fort is about. We actually need a reacquaintance with our heritage, with our stories, with our soil, with our history. And this is exactly what we need. When you see the books, you will actually enjoy them. The translations are in progress. The Indian language editions will be about as interesting as the English ones. But in terms of stories, Sohail, I'd like you to talk about the surprises that come out for people when they figure out that how they understood a place is completely different from what they can learn about it.
You see, there is Sanchi, for those who have been there, you would know. The 4 gates, each gate has a theme outside, then there is a theme inside. And there are stories from the Jatak tales. And there is one Jatak which is depicted, and I saw that, and then later when I was discussing this with Narayani pointed out that is the Jatak tale. And you look at the depiction, it's like a time-lapse photograph. There is an elephant who has gone and offered fruits to Buddha. A monkey notices this, and he also decides to take something to Buddha as an offering. So he plucks a beehive and carries it to Buddha, and Buddha refuses to take the honey, because if he had consumed the honey, the bees and their eggs would die. So the monkey takes it back, cleans the beehive, goes back to the Buddha, gives him the honey, and now Buddha accepts it. The monkey returns empty-handed but happy. All this entire story is depicted. There is just one frame, but there are 2 monkeys. One monkey walking towards the stupa with a bowl in his hand, and the other returning empty-handed. You actually see 2 monkeys. One with a bowl in his hand, the other without a bowl in his hand. Now this is comic strip. But this kind of narration that you have in these structures, and when the story was told to kids, they were thrilled to bits. There is another story which is a snake has entered a temple and refuses to come out. And Buddha reaches there and he enters the temple, and the snake throws fire and smoke at Buddha, and Buddha returns the smoke and the fire, and the smoke comes out of the temple and crawls into the kamandal of Buddha, and the temple is freed. Outside there are celebrations. The priests want to light a fire to organize a havan. The fire will not catch fire, the wood will not catch fire till Buddha gives it permission. People go out to catch fish. The fish will not fall into the net till Buddha gives it permission. All this is depicted in one panel. There are these fascinating stories. The books we write about children, we talk to them, this was built in 3rd century BC by Maharaja Ashok, etc., etc. The kids are not interested. But if they know these stories, and this is what we are trying to capture in these books, these stories of these structures, the monuments, etc., etc., hopefully this will rekindle an interest in history, rekindle an interest in our heritage, and then when the second series of books comes, which is for the secondary school students, and then finally on these monuments for college students, then maybe we will have a gradual re-education in our heritage, in our history. And I think that is an extremely interesting idea.
So we already have much better fiction for children. I'm hoping that these books will set a new bar in non-fiction for children.
Absolutely.
Our time is up. Thank you very much. You've been patient listeners.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations for the launch of the Roshni UNESCO World Heritage Sites of India series, edited by Narayani Gupta. We will be going into the last session here on the Nexa front lawn in about 2 minutes. That session is Ancient DNA, who we are and how we got here. We'll just do a quick turnaround on stage and we thank you for your patience.